4 divisions, 4 hosts, all battling it out for the Holy Grail of the American Hockey League, the Calder Cup. This is the Holy GrAHL podcast with Andrew Rinaldi, Dina Weinheimer, Jeremy Paul, Michael Liu, and Zack Power.
Hello and welcome to the inaugural episode of Field Pass Hockey's AHL podcast, the Holy GrAHL. Here at the Holy GrAHL, we aren't about Monty Python, we aren't about relics, but we are all about the American Hockey League and the yearly race to their Holy GrAHL, the Calder Cup. Before we get too far into this, we're going to go around the screen here and introduce ourselves, and we're going to make it easy on us and go in alphabetical order. Andrew, I'm going to throw it to you.
All right. My name is Andrew Rinaldi. I am the general Central Division expert here for the Holy GrAHL. This will be my second season with Field Pass Hockey here. I cover the Chicago Wolves and starting this season, the Grand Rapids Griffins. And I love long walks on the beach, so can't wait to get started.
What beach are you walking on, Andrew? Up in Michigan.
The ones on the lakes that have broken bottles and sharp rocks on them. So I got hobbit feet as a result. Well,
at least you found a silver lining, I suppose. All right, I guess I'm next. Hi, guys. I'm Dina Weinheimer. I am the AHL editor here at Field Pass Hockey, also covering the Cleveland Monsters beat. This will be my third season. I'm also one of the co-hosts of the Monsters Musings podcast. I don't much care for walks on the beach. I'd rather be out on the water with my paddleboard. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Awesome, Dina. Well, my name is Jeremy Paul. I am in my first season with Field Pass Hockey. I am covering beat for the Rochester Americans this season, so really looking forward to covering the team out there in the Rock. I also am the host, co-host and producer of Subjectively Speaking, which is a fan podcast for the Columbus Blue Jackets. So loving the podcast world and always excited to hop on another one with you wonderful folks.
Well, to Jeremy's point, my name is Zack Power, and I'm covering the Toronto Marlies this season on Field Pass. I've been covering the Marlies now for the past 2 seasons, going in for number 3. I'm from Newfoundland, so my shores are a little bit rocky, so you can't really step on those either. So I kind of know that feeling.
Never stopped me.
If I go for long walks on the beach, I usually just end up in a cornfield here in Ohio. So I'm right there with you.
Same. Jeremy and I are both kind of in the same-ish area of Ohio. Yeah.
Gotta love it. The flatlands.
Yeah, it's all good.
But, well, folks, we have a trade to announce. We've got a pretty exciting day here. So earlier today, the first trade of the AHL season went down. They don't even let the puck drop for us before they start making some moves. So Jake Lucini is on the move from the Laval Rocket to the Belleville Sens in exchange for the often traded but never talked about future considerations. I've never really super understood what that means. It's always fun to read. I always like to imagine some fun scenarios of the future considerations myself.
It's more of just like a formal handshake, a little bit of a nudge. I mean, a party favor down the line somewhere, but it never really gets brought up. There's never like oh, by the way, this is those considerations from 3 years ago. Yeah, we're going to take that guy now off your hands. Never really see it pop up down the line. It's always just like, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But it never really turns into anything tangible. It's just kind of a free ride over to Belleville here for Jake.
Do you think that they get one of those coupons where it's like 1 free goal or like here's a penalty we'll give you? Like,
you might get a get out of jail free card there just for his trouble, Maybe at least pay for his bus ticket.
Could you imagine if they did have vouchers for that sort of thing? And then you could just bank them up and then like for every, 5 future considerations, you get like one free shootout goal or something like that.
I think we might have to make it happen. I don't know who to write, but I feel like we should make the ask.
Yeah, I mean, you get a petition going, enough weight under it, the wheels start turning. Create some spice in the season.
Watch out for tomorrow morning on change.org. The Field Pass Hockey AHL group petition. Let's start a coupon or a voucher book.
I'm making a whole book with these, man.
What amazes me though is that these two teams they've only played each other, and then Toronto as well up in the Canadian preseason. So if it's going at this kind of rate, they'll be making a trade with every single game that comes from here on out. So I guess they've seen enough of each other in Belleville. Made the change.
Yeah, at this point, they're just like, hey, I like that guy. Can I have him? And they're like, yeah, sure. Why not? Here you go.
I mean, what is going through this player's head? I mean, could you imagine, in the NHL, we're used to seeing these like blockbuster trades, or you see one guy that gets traded for like 5 other pieces. Mm-hmm. And then you're the guy that gets traded for essentially, like Andrew said, a wink, a nudge, a voucher from the coupon book.
How does that phone call to mom work out? Do you like, oh, mom, I got traded today. It was for nothing, but it all works out in the end. Like
nothing yet. It's all about futures. It's nothing yet, but it could be something.
I think there are some folks who take pride in who they at least like. If they get moved, they can be like, "Well, I was a part of this trade, right?" And it's so hard to cling on to any amount of pride in that transaction, and it makes me wonder also, like, what is like the best future consideration? Like, has it ever actually materialized into actually anything? Like, I'm not talking like, Calder Cup tournament MVP winning caliber. I'm just talking like just one AHL game played. I'm just so curious at this point to know.
I've seen it in the NHL, but that's only because during the off season, I watch those trade tree videos on Sportsnet, and there's one specific example where future considerations actually amounted to not just something, but like a tangible like NHL player for, I believe it was Calgary. I want to say it was when Theo Fleury got traded to Colorado, and then later on down the line, they figured this young defenseman, he's Calgary's now. I don't know how that happens. I don't know what kind of backroom, again, handshake deals got to go in for these sorts of things to happen. But I want people to know out there that sometimes future considerations, it's not just a happy meal. Sometimes these things do become people and players and things that we can actually put value to.
I mean, at least in the NHL, we can look at that and go, oh, well, that was purely nothing but a cap move. They don't have that in the American Hockey League, at least not a hard cap. They just have to, kind of work in tandem with the NHL club and their owners. So, of course, everybody has an internal cap, but it's a little bit of a head scratcher. I think that's something we can maybe kind of put in our back pocket to look whenever there's a little bit of a slow news week to look into a future consideration trade tree.
I like it.
I've got to say, I'll be paying close attention to Jake and the future consideration to see who really won this trade. Eyes like a hawk.
I'll put money on Jake. Future consideration has been traded way too many times. I think they're a journeyman. They're not going to make it too much longer. Maybe I'm wrong. I've been wrong before.
Gotta love the tenacity, though. It just never goes away.
The grit is there.
True. I will bow down to that.
So we've got some other fun stuff happening in the league this week, some really important stuff in terms of equity and inclusion in the sport, in terms of progress in the sport. And that, my friends, is that the AHL has announced that women will be a part of the officiating crews this season. Just what are some of your takes here as the news comes down? This was something that was reported, earlier in the week, late last week, that this was something that could be happening. And now we know officially that it is happening.
So what about the timing of that announcement? I mean, it came out on October 11th, which is also International Day of the Girl. It's an International Observance Day, about supporting more opportunities for girls and increases, awareness around gender inequality worldwide. What a great time to make that announcement. 16 female officials joining the officiating ranks for the first time in the American Hockey League. I mean, that's, as a fellow woman, that's amazing. I won't lie, I'm getting a little choked up here. I'm getting goosebumps. It's so cool. I just need to collect my thoughts a little bit before I get a little, woo. I don't even know them, and I'm so excited for them.
And we always say, like, it's one of those things where why not? Why wasn't this given the opportunity before? And I truly think that one of these 16 referees that we're seeing in the American Hockey League this season is going to make their way into the NHL on a regular time basis. I know that they had some time in the All-Star game kind of thing, and there was that sort of deal going on, but why not, right? The AHL has been much of a league of experiments, and there's been a lot of good experiments. Like I think back to the overtime. The 3-3 overtime was something that was experimented in the NHL before, and now almost every other league has adopted it. So let's hope that the American Hockey League is the first of many of these officials that are going to come into the game as well.
Well, first of all, big props to the ECHL, because actually two of the officials on this list, it was, let me get their names, Kirsten Welsh, and then, I'm sorry, I'm blanking here, Kendall Hanley. Kendall Hanley actually broke the proverbial glass ceiling as she became the first female ECHL official. Now she's part of this group, graduating up into the AHL. And Andrew and I, we got the chance to speak to the manager of officiating for the ECHL, Stephen Thompson, up at the Traverse City Prospects Tournament. And we got to ask him about women in the sport. And he basically said that, same thing that Zack had said, it's long overdue, and they just want the best officials that are out there. These women came up, a lot of them went to an officiating combine held in Buffalo, and they proved that they were among some of the best talent out there. So that's why they're getting this shot. And props to them, because from what I understand, that is intense to go through, and to come out with this on the other side. I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah, I want to emphasize Dina's point there, in that these ladies coming through here through the ranks, it's not solely just, well, let's just have some female officials here just for the sake of, oh, look how progressive or inclusive we are. These women, they know the game, and they keep up, and they're excellent at their jobs. And we've, as she alluded to, we talked over with the manager of officiating all about it, and he went in depth in just how awesome they were and how they've proved themselves at these combines. And we saw them working firsthand at Traverse City and as in those games. And it's awesome, and just seeing the progress coming through, step by step. I think eventually, we're going to see some of these girls in the NHL, and we're just seeing it firsthand here in the AHL, and it's kind of, cool to look at history in the making,
Well, it seems like Kirsten Welsh, Kendall Hanley, joined with Katie Guay and Kelly Cook, seem to kind of be a foursome that are kind of sticking together on their way up. Back in the 2020 All-Star game back in St. Louis, that group of four actually worked the Elite Women's 3-on-3 event. And it's those four that all entered the record books whenever they were referees for different NHL prospect tournaments. Katie Guay called the Anaheim Rookie Face-Off Tournament. Kelly Cook officiated the Nashville Predators Showcase. And then Welsh also took the ice in the Buffalo Sabres Prospect Challenge, in addition to, again, Traverse City this year. So it's exciting. A group of 16. That's just the sheer number is amazing. But the best part is we don't even have to wait to see history happen. It's going to happen right away.
Yeah.
Yeah, without a doubt. And, thinking through, especially your point, Dina, about like the sisterhood of, especially the 4 that you referenced of like going through this, I can only imagine what the excitement has to be for those 4 who have done so much over the course of the last couple of years to really solidify their spot and what we know to be true, right? And whether it's right, wrong, or indifferent. And I think we would all probably agree that it's probably more on the side of wrong, but women have actually had to work harder to get to this spot, right? And so for those 4 especially, to all the work, like you said, in St. Louis at the various prospect tournaments, to see it come to fruition here on this weekend, this coming weekend, just a couple of days from when this episode releases, is when this glass ceiling will break. And I'm really excited to take it in.
Yep. So that'll be Saturday, Lehigh Valley at Wilkes-Barre Scranton. Katie Guay will be working alongside Brandon Schrader. So that'll be the pairing that breaks that lack of women in the AHL. And then right next game, Kelly Cook will be working Rochester at Utica, and Jacqueline Z. Howard another Lehigh Valley game, will call Lehigh Valley when they go to Hershey. So 3 games this weekend will feature this group. And I don't know about you guys, but I will be watching.
Oh, without a doubt.
It's worth looking at too, the caliber that these referees, you definitely can't discredit them, because if you even look at the NWHL, that's had some really great success and some really high talent players come through. And so, I mean, to be able to referee that, these referees have lots of experience going into the AHL. It's not like someone that they plucked off the street. And it's like you guys mentioned, they have that sort of experience that they're able to bring to the table, and that hard work that they had to be able to get to this position.
Well, hard work, and for at least one of them has a bit of a nice family line when it comes to professional hockey. Let me drop a name for you. Elizabeth Mantha. Recognize that last name? I'm sure you do. She's the sister of Anthony Mantha of the Washington Capitals. So it's, just all around. It's exciting for the game overall. I'm excited to see women's hockey and women in men's hockey, just in the sport overall, taking these amazing steps. And hopefully we'll get a chance to maybe talk to one of them, sometime soon. And just, I'm not sure what else to really say. You guys covered it really well.
And I think it's worth noting too that 2 incredible women find themselves in really high level positions within the AHL, working as vice presidents of hockey operation, Melissa Caruso and Haley Moore. And so it's refreshing that like not only is the AHL making spaces for these folks like in the trenches, if you will, like on the ice, how like they're giving their organization to folks to run, and vice president of hockey operation is no small title like in any way, shape, or form. And so always great to see the AHL being leaders in this area in the sport of hockey.
Yeah, just to wrap it up in a nice bow, thank you AHL for recognizing talent,
100%.
no matter what form of body it comes in.
Absolutely.
This thing's great.
And speaking of talent, y'all, it has been on the ice here in the last week or so. We've got some training camps rolling. We've got the teams that we cover taking the ice, the rest of the teams in the league. So what are some of your takeaways so far of training camp? What do we know? What's still left to be determined? Talking through some of maybe the preseason.
Well, first, for those of us joining on YouTube, I'm going to give you something a little bit different to look at than just our 4 lovely faces. So big thank you to the Cleveland Monsters, who supplied us with a little bit of footage from their training camp up in Strongsville. One thing about most training camps that I'm seeing is you don't get a lot of information. Some teams, like Cleveland, you'll get a little bit of social media hits. They're closed to the public right now. And that's pretty much all we've gotten. We've gotten 2 blog posts on their website, a couple of videos, and that's pretty much it. Meanwhile, other teams have like daily features on their players. They have a lot more in depth. So training camps in the AHL can be a bit of an enigma.
And I think that's one of those things to look at too, is I think with every year, the speed of the game is just getting faster and faster. And now you're seeing more of these younger teams. When I look at it, I look at the NHL and their kind of preseason games. And so we say, okay, well, we kind of can tell that this half of the roster isn't going to make it to the NHL this year, which means that they'll be playing probably in the AHL. And that kind of gives you a good indication. And from what I could see from a lot of these teams, is the indication is that they're going smaller, they're going faster. And these are strong players who are going to get a crack on the roster that might not have had a crack on maybe 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, kind of thing. And so I think that's something that with the teams that are releasing now their training camp roster, you're starting to see players in the 2000s, right? And having a kid who's not even 20 years old in a lot of cases, who's might or probably will get a crack at an AHL roster, is pretty amazing to see, and it's exciting.
Absolutely. And the way that the year kind of went last season with the delay of the junior leagues and seeing all these young kids coming in, I have a firsthand perspective with Chicago. Their team, the first 9 games, was led by teenagers. They had a power play unit of just teenagers. And not only that, they look good. They look real good. Now, these are first round talents. I'm not going to put just some 19-year-old off the street in an AHL game or anything, but still, I think, as you said, it's getting faster, and kids these days are getting faster and stronger, and they're able to keep up with the speed of the game way younger than they used to be, say, 10 years ago. 10 years ago, no one would want a 19-year-old going up there with a 28-year-old, 210-pound defenseman bearing down at him. But now that defenseman can't catch up to him because the 19-year-old speeding past him down the boards on for a breakaway. So I think it's really fascinating to see how the game shifts, and you can really see it as each training camp goes on, just the speed and the talent of these kids. And, they're getting better younger. And I just turned 30, and looking at some of these names and these birthdays makes me feel like I just turned 50. It's, oh my God, but it's unbelievable. It really is a treat to watch.
Now, I'm on the other side of 30, heading to 40. Don't make me feel any older, please.
I didn't mean that to kill.
Sorry, Zach, go ahead. I just had to interject there.
Oh, no, that's fine. I'm not going to age drop here. But I think to Andrew's point, and I remember last year, I was looking at some of his recaps and even watching some of the games. And I remember Andrew saying, he's like, how can we keep these guys? And I think that that's a lot of the same kind of reaction that a lot of the fans are kind of getting now too, is they're looking at this talent, this raw talent that has a lot of opportunity to materialize. And they're saying, how can we keep this kind of talent? Because if they can shift up and down the ice and keep up with the 28-year-olds or even zoom past them, I think that that's something that a lot of teams are going to be looking to keep.
Well, one thing I noticed, of course, with me being one of the editorial staff, I get to read a lot of stories from our wonderful group of writers, all you guys, all of our colleagues here. And one thing I kept noticing was when people were talking about defensemen, one word kept coming up was speed, dexterity, high hockey IQ, things like that on defensemen. Like normally you're used to hearing that about forwards. Well, it's definitely a huge culture shift across the entire game. And it's the days of the large stay-at-home defenseman. It seems to be trending. Of course, you're always going to have a need for that to protect your goalie, but the amount of just super agile defensemen that can chase down guys on a breakaway, it seems to be growing every single year.
I think it's all kind of a trickle down. You see what the NHL is doing, and then of course the AHL is going to mimic that direction, so that way the transition from minor to the big team is a little more seamless that way. And you're just seeing now these defensemen that are asked to jump up into the play, and they can zip back and then still get back in time for their defensive assignment. It's mind-boggling, especially when you see someone like me skating out there, and then you're looking at these guys like, holy cow. But I think as you see the game changing at the NHL, the AHL, and as we I forget the manager of officiating's name, I'm so sorry, but as we spoke with him, we kind of in years past thought of the ECHL as just a gong show league where there's just 4 or 5 different fights or a line brawl showing up every night, and how that's now shifted into more talent and speed, skill, and the big tough guys that play 60 seconds and are out there to just scrap. Those days are just the reality of it is that behind us. You got to know how to play the game and that's every level of hockey now. There's the way that everything's shifting and the way that these pipelines work. If you can't skate, you can't play. It's basically what it boils down to.
Just a name drop, Stephen Thompson.
There it is. I'm so sorry.
It's all good.
Write me an angry letter.
I only know it because I brought up our article that we wrote about it, and his name was staring me right in the face. So otherwise, I probably would have forgotten too.
Of course, because I heard it and I still forgot it.
It's all good.
Well, I think what's interesting too, and we're talking about these rosters, and we're talking about how young not only these players are, but like the players in the big leagues and stuff like that, is like I feel like, and I don't know if it's COVID pandemic related and changing perspectives and things, but I feel like the number of guys who tried to make the jump from Europe to North America this season has contributed to rosters in the AHL getting a little bit younger, because you've got guys who are really close to being NHLers. I'm thinking of JJ Paterka specifically, like with the Amherst, and I'm like, he's so close. Like he's not going to be in Rochester for long, but he didn't make the cut out of camp. And so when we start this season, like we're going to see a lot of these teams, I think, really young. And I think that's going to shift, obviously, like as the season continues, as injuries happen, and as these players continue to prove themselves, because I believe it was Andrew earlier. I mean, once you see these guys who are, just absolutely tearing up the AHL with their raw talent, speed up against these 28-year-old, men, it's going to be really hard to keep them in the league. It's going to be really hard to keep those guys from moving on up.
Well, if I can interject with a similar thought, though, is last year we got to see some pretty amazing talent because some of the junior leagues did not opt in.
Yeah.
I'm thinking specifically in Cleveland, a very young, very promising, very skilled defenseman, Ole Bjorkvik-Holm, which now he has to go back to the OHL this year because they opted in to play. So some teams are losing out on some, again, even more great young talent because of one rule. And that's a little sad. I hope it doesn't hurt, these young players' development to kind of, not to say it's lower, but it is a junior league. So we're kind of taking a step back per se. Yeah,
I've been clamoring since the onset of last year's Wolves season when Jarvis stepped in and just immediately lit the league up. And by the time that Portland had restarted their season, he was called back to junior. He was essentially getting sent down in a way as the leading scorer in the AHL. And it's, again, not every 18, 19-year-old is going to come in and put on a show like that, but I really didn't feel like it's at least development wise. He's already performing admirably and well beyond admirably. He was the number one guy in points. He was the man for the Wolves. And here he is going to go back to juniors, to a level of hockey that did not suit him. From a development standpoint, what does that do? And I was clamoring for, something to kind of, it's so hard because, as I said, not everyone's ready for that. You get a handful of players here and there. Phil Tomasino was another one. All he did as a teenager was tie for the Wolves lead in scoring, and he's probably going to be up in Nashville this coming season. But it's just that weird buffer zone where, Jarvis wouldn't have made the Hurricanes, but he's not going back to Portland didn't really do him well. I mean, maybe, mentally it was nice to hang out with all his friends and everything. He certainly seemed quite excited to go back to junior, even after lighting up the AHL, but I've been kind of hoping that there might be some kind of change, especially, I thought there's one of the silver linings of COVID was, as I said before, kids are now getting faster, stronger, better. And this whole idea of, well, you have to be at least 20 to play in the AHL. Well, they've kind of proven that to be wrong. Shouldn't be for everyone. Not every 18-year-old is ready to play in this league, but the ones who are, let's see them, and it'll be better for them to play against bigger, stronger, faster competition.
Wholeheartedly agree.
It makes you wonder how much these top prospects who find themselves in a situation where they're trying to decide like what their junior future holds, if they go into a league that would allow them to transfer to the AHL as an under 20 and not in a league like the CHL where you're kind of roped into this like we talked about 20-year-old rule. And so I'm thinking about players like Cole Sillinger with the Cleveland Monsters and with the Columbus Blue Jackets, thinking through, this is a player that if he does not end up succeeding in Columbus after a few games, the Blue Jackets have a choice whether or not to send him back to his WHL assignment, or they could send him to AHL Cleveland. So a lot of fascinating things because of the choice that he ultimately had to make because of COVID, but it makes you wonder, will these top prospects start making the choice to go to leagues that allow them that freedom to potentially, go to a league like the AHL to develop? Because as we see, as the NHL season is starting, the AHL produces NHLers, and it produces NHLers at a rapid clip. 597 AHLers are on opening night rosters for the NHL this season, which is just absolutely staggering to look at. We've got the Seattle Kraken leading the league with 23, and we've got anywhere from 23 to 14. So rosters are full of these guys. So the development that's happening in this league is massive.
Yeah, it just goes to prove the AHL is, the league to go to if you want to learn how to play in the National Hockey League. The National Hockey League gets talent not only of the players, but of the officials. You see NHL organizations grabbing talent from front offices, coaches, everything from the American Hockey League. It's an exciting league to cover. And 597, that is not a small number by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, if you look, like, that can fill up entire teams and still have people left over.
Yeah, the fact that the fewest number on any roster is 14 kind of speaks volume of itself. That's over half the roster trained and developed in this league. So it just kind of speaks volumes as to the success rate and that's the path to go through. I'm absolutely tripping over myself here, but you guys get my point.
Yeah. One thing I would be interested to know is, what's the average amount of time that all of these guys spent in the American Hockey League? Like, was it you kind of go up and down, back and forth for a season, whenever we have a long stretch of games that you're not going to play? or were these guys that sat down, or not, I guess not sat, but skated down there for a season or two? That's just where my mind wanders.
You also got to think about too is waiting for that roster spot to open up. I remember when Michael Hutchinson was playing down with St. John's in the AHL. He spent a lot of time down there, and I kept thinking to myself, okay, when is that position going to open up? Because you had Pavlik, and then you seen Hellebuck get promoted up there. So it was one of those things, and it was the same thing in Toronto. I looked at Rasmus Sandin and Timothy Liljegren, and even Liljegren is still kind of waiting for that open spot on the Maple Leafs. So I think that that's the big thing for a lot of the players now is they know that they have the skill to be able to light up the American Hockey League, but they're simply waiting for a roster spot on the NHL to be able to go further with it, sort of thing.
Totally true. Totally true. I have a whole list of names for Cleveland, Hershey, Providence. I mean, everybody's in the same boat with that.
And I'm sure you can attest too that you basically have the article written up waiting to say that they're going to move up to the NHL kind of thing, just because you know how much talent. I'm sure that on opening night, you could look at player X, Y, Z, A, B, C, D that are going to go up that you say, oh, they're not going to last long here in Cleveland. They're not going to last long here in Rochester, wherever kind of thing. And that's sort of one of the things that you'll see on opening night, which is exciting because you're able to see the firsthand look at raw NHL talent.
Is it opening night yet?
Unfortunately not. I wish. I need it injected in my veins right now.
It's right there. It's right there. It's so close.
Please come closer. We're almost there. All right.
I know they won't release this number, but we've got 597 AHLers on the rosters right now. By the time it's all said and done with those 597 players, add in the people who are going to get called up, add in the players who are going to play on these rosters this year. Is it unrealistic to think that that number gets close to 650, like 700? Like, is it at what number does that become unrealistic, right? Like, I think we comprise 4 teams out of all of those in the AHL, and I think that each of us can pick at least 3 players that we know for a fact are playing in the NHL this year. Like, it's just like
at least
minimum.
Yeah. I don't, especially since it's actually going to be, knock on wood, a full season this year. I don't think that's unrealistic at all. But we also have to look how many of these guys that are those call-up, almost guaranteed call-ups, did they skate last year? But I guess the number would still go up, though, because they would still be an AHL alumnus.
They just didn't go for the full 4
almost
years.
every team in the league, too. You can look at a couple of players who yo-yo back and forth, who are called up and down seemingly every week. So, I mean, I don't know if that adds to your stat total, but if you think about at least every team has at least 4 or 5 players who are going to get called up to the NHL at some point in the season, times 30.
Veteran guys that get called up all the time. Shout out Zach Dalby. He left us up here in Cleveland. He went to warmer weather. I'm a little jealous, but
no doubt.
He's who I think of.
It makes you wonder if that number is going to be higher or lower though this year without having a taxi squad.
You would think higher, because at that point you don't have to worry about the trying to get the taxi squad guys playing time. You can truly go for whatever genuine need your team has whenever there's an injury or a losing streak or something like that.
Agreed. Well, friends, I am so excited for this next segment. I cannot express to you how excited I am for this next segment, because we are going to play a little bit of swipe left or swipe right. That's right. For all of you listening who might be listening as you are currently on an application such as a Tinder or a Bumble, this is the game for you. where we are going to give you some of our hottest takes, and we're going to have conversations. We're going to tell you whether or not we're going to swipe left or swipe right on the take. The rules are simple. Swipe right is good. We agree with you. Swipe left, I don't know. I'm not so sure about it. But if we can super like, we're not quite into the territory of signing up for Tinder Gold or what have you. We're not that committed to the process, but we do get our one per month. And so you all are going to have to keep us honest. We have to stay on our toes to make sure. So if you're listening to this podcast and you hear me use a super like twice in a month, you better let me know. You better hold me accountable to it. So Andrew, you have the privilege of being the person to give us their first hot take. So the floor is all yours, my friend.
Well, the first one who shows up is almost always certainly a match. So I think I'm going to hook us up here real quick. So last year, the Pacific Division was really a keen point of interest for me. And just because the scoreboard would always light up. There was just a ton of goals, a ton of action. The penalty minute numbers were skyrocketing. If it wasn't a flurry of goals, someone was getting in a fight. It was always, just 24/7 action-packed. The Pacific was crazy last year. So my hot take is that it's not going to be half as exciting for fans on the West Coast. I'm sorry. I'm here to be real. But you have no Trevor Zegras in San Diego. You have no Quentin Byfield in Ontario. The Wolves kind of stole Andrew I always get tongue twisted with his name. Podorowski, who was the leading scorer in the whole AHL. He's a Wolf now, so I'm not saying it's going to be bad hockey. I don't want to give that impression out. No red flags here, but it's not going to be what it was over last season. It's just again, don't hate me, but sorry on the West Coast. I think it's going to be a little bit of a downer for you, just a little bit.
Well, I have all the confidence in the world in that California style of hockey. I'm sorry, but it's not a match. I'm swiping left.
You're not the first one, trust me.
I'm sorry.
Oh my gosh. Well, Andrew, you've got a match with me. I'm swiping right for the exact reason that you said. Like the idea of a division without a Trevor Zegras, without a Quentin Byfield. I mean, it's just like all these names that you're seeing playing in the NHL this year. Like I agree with you. I just think things aren't going to be as exciting. But that's not to say that this isn't going to be good hockey. But that division last year was nuts, and I just think that it kind of like comes back down to earth a little bit this year. And plus, they're not going to be the only ones to have their own playoffs. So like we've already scratched that. They're done. Yeah. They're not playing in their own sandbox anymore. So I think it's going to be a little less entertaining.
Yeah.
And I think the hockey last year was almost too fun to watch without having a playoffs. It would almost be a sin not to have it as a playoffs. But I look at the teams, their farm NHL teams, their parents per se, and you look at Los Angeles. It's almost like they're over the hump with the kind of rebuild stage. You kind of see the same thing with. Well, I don't want to say Arizona because they're always rebuilding, but you look at Anaheim sort of thing. So it almost looks like they're over the hump sort of with the rebuild. And I think that a lot of the players have now graduated to the NHL or moved on somewhere else. So I think I got a match notification waiting for me.
All right. 2 out of 3.
Nice. Great job. Man, I don't know if I can follow that up, but all right. So we talked about the level of talent and how there's probably going to be a lot of up and down potentially this season. So my hot take is that at the end of the season, when we have our MVP of the American Hockey League, that person is not a guy that's on an American Hockey League opening night roster. They are somewhere else, more than likely in the NHL, possibly being scratched. But they're going to make their way to an AHL roster very soon.
See, this is where I stand with it, and I'm kind of under the impression that I think that they're going to be on an AHL roster, but I don't think that we've seen them play yet. I think that it's one of those things where you got to put your trust into the smaller guys, like we seen a lot with last year, sort of thing. So I think that they're going to be on an opening night roster, but it's going to be someone that you're not necessarily going to expect.
Is there something called a half swipe?
I think that's like the half moon, those sort of little half cakes,
Yeah.
I'll admit I celebrated my 10-year wedding anniversary with my husband this past May. So I'm not really down with the dating app lingo. So I'm like, is there a half like?
Yeah,
Does somebody half like my take?
They've yet to have a button for, well, I'm not ready for a relationship yet, but ping me back in 4 months and I'll give you a call.
That's a whole new idea.
I think I kind of locked myself in here with another hot take with my Wolves season preview, where I said Andrew Podorowski was going to lead the league in scoring again. So I think I'm going to have to go ahead and swipe left on this because, well, I'm already anchored in.
I get it.
I can't go back on myself, right?
Dina, I think your Igor Chinakov is showing. I think
my Igor Chinakov is way showing right now.
I think it's a fair point, right? Like again, like you've got guys who, have found their way onto an opening night roster in the NHL who might get a chance to play 3-4 games, and then they might get duly sent right back down to their affiliate. And obviously, like in theory, those players should be among the league's top performers, given that they're so fringe. I wonder to what extent that hurts them, though. Like, to what extent does that make it so that a player is getting called up back and forth so many times that they're not able to deliver the stats that, a guy who's staying in the AHL, who's playing, 76 games with Rochester or, with whoever. So it hurts me to swipe left on this because I love the narrative, but I am going to swipe left. I am so sorry.
But it's a reason why it's called a hot take. Not everybody agrees. If everybody agreed, we'd have to reevaluate if it was truly a hot take.
This is fair. Well, I've got one for y'all. So I'm going to say that at least 3 first-round picks from the 2021 NHL draft. So we're talking young guys. We're talking young folks. They're going to make their AHL debut this season. And to provide a little bit of context with this, kind of going back to earlier conversations that we've had, we've got some guys who are on opening night rosters right now that might end up moving back down. I think about people like Cole Sillinger. Could Cole Sillinger end up being sent to Cleveland for an assignment to try to develop? Could, players such as Mason McTavish, if he doesn't stick in the lineup in Anaheim, does he get sent down? Does the same thing happen to William Eklund? And then you look at the guys who are wrapping up their dynastic season in Michigan. These guys who are going to win the Frozen Four. They're going to win beginning of April. They're going to be playing. This might not be a hot take, but the Sabres aren't making the playoffs this year, right? We're all feeling pretty good about that.
Oh, it's pretty steamy.
Yeah, right. So I'm thinking about players like Owen Power, right? If Rochester can find a way to make the playoffs, does Owen Power get some time in the AHL? So my hot take is that at least 3 of these folks are going to be playing in the AHL this year.
Yeah, well, just off that Michigan season itself, you got about 5. I don't know the exact number, but it's pretty ridiculous, and I'm gonna hope to get over to Yost to just to watch those kids play because it's gonna be a treat. But just because, go blue, I'm swiping right on that.
Just because of the sheer number of, again, we got 3 Michigan Wolverines players. I think pretty much all of them had said, we're going full out this season, then we're going to be done. Just those 3 alone, if they go to teams where the AHL squad are going to challenge for the playoffs, and with the expanded playoff format, odds are those teams are going to get in. They're going to want every help that they can get. Swipe right. Absolutely.
And I think for me, that's going to get one of those Instagram double clicks. That's going to get the like for sure. Because, by the way, I also think that Buffalo is going to make the playoffs this year. Everyone's going to be shocked. This is going to be their year, by the way.
You
Had to
heard
get
it
that
here
out there.
first.
Left.
But I really
Hot
do
take,
think
Columbus
that
has a chance.
Yeah, left.
now that's kind of pushing it now. Cleveland, maybe, yeah. Columbus,
They're not worse than Buffalo. Come on.
Oh,
Fans have
jeez.
feelings too.
Uh-oh. You got to think about their division. Think about the division.
I know.
Montreal doesn't have the team. Ottawa doesn't have the team.
Like I said, hot take.
But nonetheless, I do think that we're going to see 3, 4, maybe even 5. I'll push it up that high. Players from the first round playing at least 2 or 3 games in the AHL.
So what I'm hearing is my take needs to be hotter next week. Got it. Noted. Making a note for myself.
Put a bikini picture on your take. You'll get some more swipes.
You're right.
I love it.
And I'm supposed to follow up after that with my take.
Yeah. Go ahead, Zach. What you got?
So I think that Hershey has really had their heyday in the AHL. Okay, we've seen for a long, long time that Hershey has been a Calder Cup contender. So I tried to turn on the boiling shower and say that they're not going to make the playoffs. I say this because of the players that they lost, and I have it written down. Okay, they've lost Axel Johnson-Fajalbi. They've lost Paul Ledoux, Cameron Schilling, and Rob O'Gara and Reese Wilcox. They're not going to make. They're going to make the playoffs, but they're not going to make it past the first round.
Can I send a message before I swipe?
No, you got to match first.
I got to match first.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. I'll swipe right so I can match, but just so I can send this message, didn't Washington reclaim Axel Johnson-Fialbi on waivers?
Oh, they did.
Oh, they did.
They did.
That I
did.
missed. That I missed.
But I already
Is it
swiped
enough?
right.
Is it enough?
That is where I wish I didn't have to swipe in order to match to ask my question. But I already swiped.
Conversation.
But
now you know the
okay.
pain of dating in 2021.
I am current with
So is that one of those
society.
match and ghosted kind of situations? Like, have you ghosted your match now? Or are you?
Don't call me out like that.
I will ghost.
Oh.
Oof.
Hey, you can always unmatch. So if you would have not liked the answer to that,
No, not past the first round. I can see it. Some of those are really big losses. It would definitely be a ghost if it was not make it, but not past the first round. I could see that. I'm sorry, Corey Schwartz, our Hershey writer, or our Hershey
now.
Bears writer.
He's typing in anger to me. I can't believe you said this.
It's a hot take, Corey. It's okay. But no ghosting. We're good.
No. Well, that I mean, I've said it before, and I'll say it again. That hair that Johnson-Fialbi's got going is worth a right swipe for me. They've been kind of a little down in the dumps, and they have lost a lot of firepower. So same thing. I can see them making the playoffs, but breaking through to the next round, it's I guess it's hard to call in October, but if I'm calling it right now, I'm with that hot take.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just all going to boil like this is just such a cop-out answer, right? But when you consider the expanded playoff format and you consider the fact that Hershey could draw almost anybody, like literally almost anybody. And so it's like, okay, like does that matchup play into their style of play? Are they able to make it past with the folks that they still have stuck around who have been here, done that? Oh gosh, I'll be contrarian. I'll swipe left and I'll say that Hershey is going to make it past the first round. I'm here to get on Corey's good side. So I will swipe left to the take.
You got some people on your side, Corey. It's all good.
We're trying. We're trying. I'm new here. I'm still trying to make new friends. But so thank you all for humoring us in that. And we're so excited for that every week. Maybe if y'all have hot takes, maybe we can include those. So you can send them our way and we'll see what happens. But
for sure.
We've got some fun scoring races to talk about in our short preseason. So obviously you have some players who lit the lamp quite a bit. You got 6 players who scored 3 goals in the postseason. You've got over 20 players with at least 2 points per game. So obviously some folks getting some good some good offensive generation happening in the preseason. Was there anybody who stood out to you all off of the list of high scorers here this preseason?
A familiar name for those of you listening from the Central Division, Dominic Turgeon, lighting it up again. I just like him as a player.
Yeah, he's normally not at the top of the scoring list, so we'll give a shout out to Dominic here. That you've been. Change of scenery. He's been in Grand Rapids for half a decade, so hey, maybe he just needed to get on over to the greener pastures of Iowa to start lighting the lamp up.
Definitely pastures.
Yeah, you caught that one. I'm glad someone did.
Yeah, and I mean, Tommy Cross, that's another name that's been around. But again, this is preseason, so 2 points per game, that's awesome. But how long is that sustained in the regular season? I think we'll see some of these names drop off because Tommy Cross isn't a noted scorer. Zach would be more familiar with Timu Kivihalmi, but I don't think most of these guys are like huge scorers. It's just the benefit of the preseason.
Yeah, Kivihalmi had a really good season last year, and he's really developed from coming over in Finland. But you got to look at the goalies out there in the preseason. They've looked like pure Swiss cheese. Right. And I think that we've seen a lot of high scoring games, especially for the preseason, more than average. So we're going to have to see when the season comes up. I think Kivihalmi is going to keep up his pace personally, but I look at some of the other names on the list.
Yeah. Frederick Allaire out of Milwaukee, Igor Sokolov out of Belleville, and the 6 skaters that had the 6-way tie for the most goals in the preseason, I don't recognize most of those names.
I know Zach Senyshyn was the nightmare of every Bruins fan, but that's about it. And it's not any fault of his, but the next pick was Matt Barzal, and the pick after that was Connor, and the pick after that was Thomas Chabot. Yeah.
Ooh.
That's not Zach's fault. I'm not implying anything.
No.
He's a good player, but
basically we can round that up with drafts are weird.
Yeah.
And unpredictable.
And sorry, but I'm just gonna knock that over the heads of Bruins fans anytime I can. Sorry. Sorry to the East Coast. I've offended the West Coast. Now I'm on to the East Coast. I'm a Midwesterner. What do you want me to do?
The Midwest better get nervous, is all I'm saying. The Midwest and the South, they're just coming for you. But yeah, and you think about the players who aren't on this list, right? Who are obvious omissions, whether that be because they haven't gotten a chance to play in the preseason because they're still fighting for roster spots, or they were still fighting for roster spots in the NHL and they've been sent back down since, or again, the guys who maybe stuck around on an NHL roster but will be down in a couple weeks. So these lists are great. Rooting for all of them to keep it up. But I think the reality of the situation is it's the preseason and things are going to tighten up pretty quick.
And one thing, it kind of segueing into the next part, but not every team plays a preseason in the American Hockey League. You have multiple teams that just don't. They stick to themselves and that's it. So you're not even seeing all the talent out there.
Yeah. No doubt. And I mean, Dina, you are one of these teams that we refer to, the Cleveland Monsters, not playing any preseason games. So obviously not getting a chance to get a look there, but anywhere from 2-3 games played for some of our some of the respective teams, 1, 2, or 3, and so a little bit of a sample size, but again, there's nothing here really to begin writing conclusions and carving in the Calder Cup anytime soon.
Right. Speaking of carving the Calder Cup, it's time to talk about the quest for the Holy Grail.
You are so right. So the quest for the Holy Grail, as we all know, the Holy Grail in the AHL is the Calder Cup, and so every week we're going to take a look at division races, who's moving up, who's moving down, and now the preseason is wrapped up. We can look to see like who did perform well in the preseason that we mentioned, who maybe did not, and so I'll open the floor up. Who here has impressed you? Who here has surprised you? And is there anything that are there any conclusions that we can make from this preseason at this point?
With most teams not even like televising or streaming or pretty much anything, and all you have to go off of is those teams that have fans and those fans that would live tweet. Of course, they're going to be talking only about their chosen team. It's hard to make any sort of determination about any of these teams. All I can say is there's some teams that didn't win any games. I'm looking at the Pacific Division more specifically. So it was rough going for some of them, but we don't know what kind of rosters they had. Maybe their parent club kept all the high-end talent and they just had truly their AHL contracts and brand new prospects. So it's hard to make a determination without information in my mind.
I had a quick listen in on some of the Laval games because they were actually on radio, but unfortunately it was in French. My 6th grade French skills have gone way down, and same with the 2 thumbs down that I'm giving to Laval after a not a great preseason. It's almost like last year they were lighting up the Canadian division, and when they went up against Toronto and Belleville, they seemed lost out there from what I can gather. And I think that has a lot to do with the assignments that their players are having up in Montreal now. And I think that because Montreal has so many losses, including last-minute losses like Carey Price, where they haven't had an opportunity to kind of bounce back from that, or they're clinging on to the hope that Shea Weber might come back, so they're not exactly going to fill that position to a T. So I think that it's one of those things where Laval is, if they're on pace like they are, it's going to be a really tough season for Laval this year. And they went from a team who might have had a really good shot at a Calder Cup, if not a Calder Cup last season, if there was a playoffs, to now 0-2 after playing Belleville and Toronto.
How the mighty have fallen.
Like Hershey.
I get. I see Hershey was able to gather up 72 penalty minutes in 2 games, so I haven't really looked at the stat sheet, but I'm gonna guess that Dylan McElrath did his thing and he woke up on the wrong side of the bed and was just the only way to cure that is by punching someone in the face. So
I wonder if that
perform, I would assume, again, I haven't seen the stat sheet, but that was a guy I know Grand Rapids is gonna miss, just having a sheriff on the blue line, and from the looks of it, if this trend continues for Hershey, they're gonna be a tough one to play against.
I wonder if those penalty minutes came in a game against Wilkes-Barre Scranton because they had 80.
Yeah, that might be the most.
It seems to be tame, but those two, they kind of stand out.
Yeah,
that might be the most interesting thing to follow along with this is looking at just, you've got Henderson and Tucson, both Henderson's 80 penalty minutes, Tucson's 79. I don't know what's happening. And I'm not saying sign me up to cover this for the whole season, but I'm happy to be the one to make sure that I'm keeping abreast to all of the, I mean, that's ridiculous, right?
Yeah. In two games, 72. That's quite a bit. It's but I can understand too. You get some of these guys that are here on tryouts, and really in the preseasons for these teams, when you have your star players are up with the big club in preseason, what you have are some other players who are literally sometimes fighting for a contract, that are out there trying to show this team, hey, here's what I can bring. Sometimes, you're going up to an opening face-off. You don't even know the guy next to you, but you want to, get under his skin, start, maybe give him a chop or something, and try and get the energy going for the guys on your bench, and hoping that general manager or coach will take notice. And I think that's what happens a lot in these preseasons. Just got to make a name for yourself. Someone on Hershey tried to make a name for himself, that's for sure.
Gold star to the Providence Bruins, though. 3 games played, 14 penalty minutes.
Good job, Providence. Good job.
Oh, my.
Wouldn't you just love to be ref for that game? It's
No.
easy. You can take your time. It's okay.
Oh, no, I would not.
100%.
So we get some stuff in the preseason, but like we've all talked about it, right? Like it's happening, y'all. Like this weekend is the start of it. And so we've got some games that we are going to be tuning into, and they're games that we think you should tune into as well. So let's run it down division by division. Let's talk about our games of the week. So, Andrew, I will throw it over to you for the Atlantic. Who do you have? Whose eyes are you? What am I saying? Who are you going to have your eyes on this week?
All right. So this Saturday, my game of the week in the Atlantic, I got Charlotte going in Hershey. And this is one to introduce all of our very new Seattle Kraken fans. Welcome to the club. This is the AHL. You're going to love it. And just kind of seeing where Hershey's going to go after, in last year they completely smoked the North Division. They're always a perennial contender. What are they going to do here? Obviously, we got that hot take that their playoff fortunes aren't going to be so great, but it all starts on the first night. And as for Charlotte, one, you got the dual affiliation with Florida and now Seattle, but also this is their first game since 2020 with them opting out in 2021. So it's on the road. They're going to be on the road for a couple games, but how's the coaching staff, how are they going to get their players all adjusted to get back into the game speed? It's how do you recover from that being off for over a year?
Well, for me, I'm going to go Lehigh Valley, Wilkes-Barre, Scranton on Saturday, October 16th. We talked about it earlier. History will be made in this game. For me, that's a must watch. Plus, as we talked about with those penalty minutes, it's one of the battles of Pennsylvania. Those are always a good watch. So for me, it was that hands down.
Yeah, I mean, it has to be, right? Like I'm going with you, Dina. History being made, the Battle of Pennsylvania. It's just both too good to be true, and I'll definitely be tuned in on Saturday.
Well, I'm going to take my horse and I'll go somewhere else. And I really think that I'm excited to see Bridgeport and Providence play this Friday, because this is going to be our first crack at seeing the new Bridgeport team, the Bridgeport Islanders. Very interesting look, and it'll be a fresh team. But the thing is these two teams played each other a lot last season, and I think that it's one of those things that you're going to look to see if they've actually learned anything from playing each other in that small circuit. So just on the fact that you could see them two play for the first time, kind of thing, since last year, and then to see these fresh new uniforms and a fresh new look for Bridgeport, I think will be an interesting one.
All right, so then we move to the north, where we've got a lot of really great matchups. Hard to choose some, but we're gonna do it anyway.
All right, yeah, I'll start us off here again, and so the tone's gonna get a little somber here, folks. But my game of the week in the north will be Syracuse going into Cleveland on Friday night, and as I mean, we're all well aware of, this will be the first home game for the Monsters since Mattis Kivlenieks passed away over the offseason. And obviously it was a absolutely awful tragedy that it really brought the hockey community together to support the friends and family of not just Kivlenieks, but the entire Columbus organization. Just the outpouring of support. It was really, really awesome to see everyone kind of come together and celebrate the life of who I understand was just an absolutely wonderful person, and Mattis. And the Monsters, they gotta temper all this emotion, and they gotta go up against a tough opponent in Syracuse. And I'm interested to see how they're gonna respond, if they're gonna come out guns blazing, or no one blame them if there's a bit of letdown. There's a lot going through their minds. It's hard to focus on the game.
Absolutely. And as the resident Monsters beat writer, I have to echo Andrew's sentiment 100%. He left a hole in the hearts of everybody in that organization as big, if not bigger, than the hole on the ice. We don't know yet what plans the Monsters have for memorializing him this season, or potentially beyond that. But if I have to choose my own game, I'm going to go Manitoba and Toronto again, Saturday, the 16th at 4:00. Last season, Manitoba actually had a 5-4 record against Toronto. But Toronto does have the commanding lead on the 5-year series between the two teams. So it'll just be interesting to see which one wins out. And I always love a good Canada versus Canada match.
I think what's so interesting is, like, as I was looking through trying to make my picks for this week, we spent the entire last year. The Rochester Americans played 3 teams. And as you're going through this list, almost everybody's opening up against a team that they only explicitly played last year. So it's hard to get super jazzed about any of these matchups, because you're like, again. But if you have to, and for me to I tried to avoid my beat writer bias, but for me, I look at this matchup between the Rochester Americans and the Utica Comets, the new look Utica Comets, I might add. I'm a fan of the switch up, I have to admit. But you look at that, you look at players such as JJ Peterka making their professional North American debut. A lot of really great prospects on both sides of the ice there, and I think it's just going to be a lot of fun to watch.
And I think I'll be joining you guys and the rest of the AHL community in watching the Cleveland Monsters first game kind of thing of the season. But I'm really looking at Belleville and Laval. Laval had a really shaky start, like I mentioned earlier, in the preseason. And I think that they now have a lot to prove, because I think that they now have a lot of pressure of what they had last year. Now that's riding on them once again. So I think that them two playing on Friday is really going to be the real kind of icebreaker. Now, they played each other a couple times last season, and it was kind of pretty well even per se. But I mean, I'm looking at how is Laval going to do this year, especially with a lot of their losses, and Belleville looks to only be going up and up.
So as we're going into the Central here, which is kind of my my neighborhood, I'm gonna go with Grand Rapids at Milwaukee. It's also on Saturday night, but this is gonna be the Admirals' first game. They, like Charlotte, they also opted out in 2021, and no one's gonna blame them for that with everything that was going on. But you got to imagine with your first game back and your fans haven't been in that barn for over a year, they're going to be pretty wild. And not only that, but Milwaukee had a really good squad with a lot of good young players. A lot of them were on Chicago last year. With the dual affiliation, I got to see a good look at Phil Tomasino, Freddie Allard. He's had a good preseason early on, and they're going up against a Grand Rapids team that was kind of just mediocre, I want to say. They had as many wins as losses, and many goals for as goals against. But this year, they're getting Joe Valeno. First of all, I thought this kid was going to make the Red Wings. I was kind of shocked that he's getting sent down, but he's done nothing but impress me since the prospect tournament up in Traverse City. Not only are they getting him, but they're getting a couple of other really skilled, talented young players in Jonathan Berggren and Kirill Tutayev. I want to say it's how it's pronounced. But these kids, they got nothing but skill, and I think Grand Rapids is going to try and build themselves a little better identity than just, well, we're here.
Well, I'm going to keep mine short and sweet here. I'm going to continue on with the theme. Saturday, October 16th. Earlier, I talked about the Battle of Pennsylvania. This time, it's the Battle of Chicagoland. I'm going to go Rockford in Chicago. I mean, Chicago was 8-2 against Rockford last season. They have a commanding 23-13, 5-3 lead over the last 5 years. We're kind of seeing how this one will go, but I love a good close geographical rivalry game.
For sure. And for me, I've got to go with Iowa and Texas also on Saturday. All eyes are going to be on Marco Rossi making his professional debut in North America after suffering from complications of COVID-19 that made it so that he could not play last year. I think, in the midst of all the storylines that we've talked about over the off season, this is one that I think has kind of flown a little under the radar here in the last few weeks as we lean into the AHL season. And it's one that I'm going to be following pretty closely. I don't know that he'll be in Iowa for long. He was among the last cut in Minnesota. And so it's possible that he'll be one of these players that we talk about on future segments, but ultimately I'm looking forward to watching him make his debut and hopefully, watching him have a successful stint in Iowa while he's still there.
And I also think I'm looking at Rockford as well, because I'm looking for better things of what I've seen in the past couple of seasons with them. But I'm really looking at Charlotte. It's their first game with a new affiliate kind of thing. They sat out with COVID-19. So I think the fans have been waiting a long time. There's been a lot of anticipation for their game that's coming up against Hershey, and that's on Saturday. And that'll be the first crack at Hershey that will really I know that they play Friday, but they'll be their first real crack at impressing me at least.
All right, and then going into the Pacific, and I spent the whole thing being on, the Pacific's not going to be as good. I know, but my game is still going to be San Diego and Ontario, because it was just the interstate rivalry there is just too good to pass up. And it doesn't matter if the big names aren't there or anything; it's still going to be good hockey. It might not be last year. Again, don't swipe on me about it, but it'll still be a good game.
Well, before I tell you my pick, I just want to promise that I actually looked at the entire schedule for the next week. I didn't just pull up Saturday. It just so happened that so many teams are playing Saturday and there's so many awesome matchups that all my picks fall on Saturday. But I'm going to be picking the Abbotsford Canucks and facing off against the Bakersfield Condors. Honestly, this is Abbotsford's first game since joining the league. It's not home. It's going to be away, but their chance is coming very soon to welcome their team to British Columbia. So welcome to the AHL, Abbey Canucks. We're happy to have you here.
And a special shout out to our friend Michael, who is, I'm sure, over the moon excited to cover that game. So for me, I'll take Colorado and Henderson. Kind of going back to what we talked about with the West, where it's just you have so many of these teams, these AHL affiliates that you see that the NHL roster has graduated, and so you're looking at teams that are over the hump, and you've got a team like Vegas who's never come on the other side of the hump. So really depleted prospect pools here, in my opinion. Obviously you've got a few talented players, but primarily you've got a lot of guys who are playing in the juniors, if we're honest, with these top prospects for both of these teams. And so you've got a lot of true AHLers on these rosters. You've got a lot of older guys who are still just gritting their teeth in the NHL or AHL, excuse me. Every now and again, they're getting called up. I'm thinking of the Kiefer Sherwoods, the Stefan Matteaus of the world for Colorado. And it's going to be a lot of fun to watch those two teams navigate as really really purely AHL talent. So I'm looking forward to seeing those two.
Poor Henderson. Hey, I feel like sometimes they just can't get a break. But I'm really looking at Stockton's first game of the Canadian division on Friday against Tucson. And I think that they had a pretty mediocre year last year in the Canadian division, where it almost looked like they struggled in some parts. And it wasn't really until later in the season that they finally got their feet off the ground and looked like they were playing some good hockey. So I think if they were building off how they were playing in May last year, I think that they could really be a good team, but they're up against a fine Tucson squad.
So these are the games we're telling you to watch. We recognize that most of them are at the same time on the same day. So you're going to have to get creative about how you all watch them. But if you all haven't seen yet to this point, perhaps now is the best time to let you know that if you want to catch any of these games that we mentioned, AHL TV is having their free view of all opening weekend games from the 15th to the 17th of October. So you're just going to want to go to watchtheahl.com to sign up. I need to do that because I still haven't renewed my AHL TV subscription, so I need to get on that. But Dina, my friend, you have a game for us.
Yes. So to close out our inaugural episode, each week we're going to have a bonus round, but I have a game for you all for our bonus round. This is a little something I am calling Choose a Val, A or I. Rules. I'm going to read out a list of teams. Your job is to tell me, were they a team in the AHL or were they a team in the IHL? So guys, get a paper and pen ready. Basically, winner gets bragging rights in our writers Discord channel and gets to organize next week's bonus round. So are you guys ready?
All right.
So I have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have 7 teams. Okay.
Oh, no.
All right. So first team we have is the Nova Scotia Voyagers, A or I. Okay. Next, we have the Erie Blades. Okay. Bonus point if you know who they ended up becoming. Next, we have the Detroit Brights Goodyears. A or I? Okay. Next, the Oklahoma City Barons. Again, bonus point if you know who they are now. Okay. Next are the Toledo Goal Diggers. Not gold. Not gold. Goal Diggers.
No, that's so good.
Get down.
Right.
Don't hate, get down.
Nice.
That went way over my head. I'm hyper focused. Okay.
Okay, now this one will throw you for a loop, and I promise it is an A or an I team, but the Orlando Solar Bears. I know they're an ECHL team now, but what were they originally? And finally, the Moncton Hawks, A or I. All right. You guys have your tallies.
I'm looking forward to being entirely wrong about all 7.
Okay. So we'll go by the honor system here. I'll read out the team name, the years they were active, and then the league. And then at the end, you'll just tell me how many points you got. So, all right. So first we have the Nova Scotia Voyagers. They were active from 1971 to 1984, and they were an American Hockey League team.
Woo.
All right. Next, we have the Erie Blades. They were around for 1 year from 1981 to 1982 before they merged with the Baltimore Skipjacks. That was also an AHL team.
Oh.
Next, name I kind of enjoyed, the Detroit Brights Goodyears. They were around from 1945 to 1949 in the IHL.
Okay. We'll get there.
We're getting a running tally off on Andrew's for those of you watching on YouTube here. Okay, now next we have the Oklahoma City Barons. They're a newer team, 2010 to 2015, but they are in the AHL. Did anybody take a guess what team they are now?
Bakersfield.
Bakersfield. If you guess Bakersfield, you get 2 points on that one. Toledo Gold Diggers, my favorite name out of all of them. They were around 1974 to 1986 in the IHL. Andrew, you are just rocking it here. And then the original iteration of the Orlando Solar Bears were around 1995 to 2001 in the IHL.
Okay.
And then finally, the Moncton Hawks. They were another 80s team, 1987 to 1994 in the AHL. Gentlemen, tally it up. Let me know what you've got. Who is our winner?
I got 2 wrong. 2 wrong. But you can't go playing me like that because I'm an Atlantic Canadian. And so putting in Atlantic Canadian teams, they built a whole system, AHL system, in it. It's a great story for another time. But they built a whole system for teams.
Yeah, I think. Sorry, I was kind of more preoccupied with like putting it up on the screen. So I have AHL, IA. I think I got one wrong.
You missed the second one, the Erie Blades. That was an I.
The second one? Okay, I had an I on the second.
But you got the
third.
extra bonus point because of Bakersfield.
Yeah. So
yeah, AAIAIIA.
AAIAIIA. Okay. All right.
Yep.
Yeah, no one. Okay. So yeah, I guess with the bonus point, I covered the spread.
You did.
Yep.
Yeah, because Zach and I were both chilling at 5. So.
All right.
Congratulations, Andrew. You get the bragging rights.
Yeah.
I got to find a way to.
Can I trade my bragging rights for future considerations?
Yes. I will get you a copy of the voucher book, I promise.
All right.
Well, everyone, that's going to be it for the inaugural episode of the Holy GrAHL podcast. This has been Dina Weinheimer on behalf of my co-hosts, Jeremy Paul, Zack Power, and Andrew Rinaldi. We thank you for listening in. Please give us a like, a subscribe, a share, anything to help share our podcast if you liked it with all of your friends and fellow hockey fans. Also, you can catch all of our written work over at fieldpasshockey.com. And plus, don't forget to check out all of our other podcasts. We have 2 other league podcasts here at fieldpasshockey.com. We have, let's see here, my mind just went blank. I apologize. We have Inside the SPHL, a brand new SPHL podcast. We also have the 3 Periods podcast, which covers the ECHL. And then, of course, we have our 2 flagship team-based podcasts. First, Syracuse Speaks with Alexandra Ackerman, covers all things Syracuse Crunch. And shout out to my friends, Jay Forster and Andrew Guarino, who helped me host the Monsters Musings podcast about all things Cleveland Monsters hockey. So until next Thursday, thank you so much for listening, and we'll catch you then.
This has been the Holy GrAHL podcast. Have a question or a topic suggestion? Hit us up on Twitter or drop us an email. For the latest news across the American Hockey League and the rest of minor league hockey, download the Field Pass Hockey app, now available in the Apple and Android app stores.